Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. I am joined by Chris Surratt, who works with Lifeway. We were blessed to talk with Ken Brady the other week, and now we get to hear from Chris. So, Chris, thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm excited to be with you guys.
Yeah, me too. Would you mind starting off just by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, work for Lifeway. I think you mentioned that. I'm the small group specialist at Lifeway. So I spend a lot of time talking about discipleship and how it happens best in the context of community, which you guys are living out there at Redland. And and I've been there about almost 5 years now. My wife is a at-home bookkeeper. We've got 2 kids, one in college, one in high school. So I feel for you guys like you, Kevin, who are raising lots of little kids and kind of doing that thing at home. It keeps us busy. Before Lifeway, I was on staff at a couple churches for about 24 years as executive pastor and overseeing discipleship and groups at our church. And I love what I do.
That's awesome. You mentioned small groups happening in community. Discipleship happens best in community. Why do you think that sort of thing plays such a central role in a healthy church?
I think it's super important to have a place for people to gather in smaller groups to be able to do life together and study God's word together. I mean, I love large gatherings. You know, there's nothing that replaces that time where we can hear the word and we can worship together. But I really think that for us to grow in our our discipleship, we need people that come alongside us that are doing life, that know who we are. You know, when a church gets beyond a certain number, I think when a church gets beyond 50 people that attend a church, there's no way to know everyone in the church. There's no way to walk alongside every single person, you know, as a pastor or as a leader. And so we need these smaller units that are being shepherded by people in the congregation. And so I think it's super important. And we can see that now, especially in this time, that large gatherings have gone away. Most churches are not able to meet together on Sundays. My church is not able to meet together. It's going to be a while. So really, my body of Christ is the small group that I meet together with on Tuesday nights. Right now, we're doing it over Zoom. But that's the way that we're able to stay focused, to support each other, is through that smaller group. So I think that churches need that to be healthy, to grow, to create disciples. You know, we were commanded to create disciples, and I think that happens best with a group of 8 to 12 people that come into my home every single week or come into a classroom on Sunday mornings. We need that to be growing disciples.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got a relational God who's made us in his image, and those relationships are truly our key to growing in Christ. Doesn't mean you can't in the large gathering. That's also crucially important. It's just that both of these are necessary. I told our teachers that during this time, they are like the connective tissue to help keep the body together, because we can't actually interact physically. But if we can get a little bit smaller and keep meeting together, that's where we can flesh out the needs. We can talk about our struggles together, which is a really important thing. You know, about a year ago, I was down in Tennessee. I was at Lifeway, and we're going through the ME Essentials course. And I was talking, I think, with Alan Roughton, and I told him, I said, I'm kind of new into this role, so maybe this has been going on for a while, but I said, I get this sense that there's a bit of a resurgence among the church toward these, toward Sunday school, discipleship, small groups, that it's getting a renewed emphasis. And, I admitted, I said, maybe it's just me because I'm kind of a little bit new in that realm with that type of oversight. But he said, no, I think there really is a renewed interest there. Have you seen that too?
I have. I think that a pendulum swings a lot of times in, any industry, but especially in churches. And so I think several years ago, there was a big movement for smaller groups, Sunday school. It became about, how do we disciple people in our congregation? And then there was a little bit of a switch toward community. How do we build community? And so that became a focus for a lot of churches. And I think what I'm seeing now is the awareness that we need both, that we need people in community and we need to be able to disciple them. So how do we do that best? Well, I think that's in Sunday school. I think that's in smaller groups. You know, we need people that are living lives out together, but we also need them spurring each other along. And so, yeah, I think there are a lot of churches that are seeing the benefit, especially in this time when we're not gathering together. Even churches that didn't have a robust small group system have groups that are now online, and they're seeing incredible attendance. I've talked to churches nearly every day that are seeing larger attendance now in their groups than they were before all of this happened. And I think that just shows us the desire and the need for people to be in community and to be discipled in a smaller group. So yes, I'm seeing churches that are grabbing onto it, and I think it's going to be even bigger now at the other end of this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that God is teaching us during this time. In our church, we've had an 8% growth in this area. Since we've gone into quarantine, we've had 2 groups launched during this time. And so it's really neat to see and see our teachers. I'm so thankful for them, our care leaders and outreach leaders, because they've pivoted quickly and learned a lot of new techniques to get online. And then our people are saying, okay, yeah, if this is the way we can meet, we'll be a part of it. And so a lot of it is really encouraging in the body of Christ. I know you wrote a book last year. I've got it right here. It's called Leading Small Groups. And I've been through it. I'm right about midway, I guess. And I'm getting great benefit from it. And I love that it's not meant to be a complicated book. It's pretty easy to follow, and I like concepts that I can latch onto. It's kind of nice.
Good.
So will you tell us just a little bit about the book?
Sure. And I'm glad that you noticed that it's simple. I'm a simple guy, and so I don't like to make things too complicated. I like to be able to grab things easily. So that was the hope for the book. I looked for ways that people could just start a group if they wanted to, what kind of tools were out there, what kind of instruction manuals. And there are some great books, but I wanted to write something that would help a potential group leader go from the beginning stages, and that's what I call gathering. I break it into 4 stages. It's gathering, launching, leading, and multiplying. So to be able to grab one book and kind of walk through it, and it's not meant to, read it overnight and then go and implement it. I would say take it in stages. So if you're in that gathering stage, if you're in that first stage, who do I invite to my group? How do I get my group started? We'll start with that section. Each one has questions after each chapter to kind of help you think through some of those concepts of gathering and launching. And so, so the idea behind the book was for church leaders and group leaders just to have a simple, not, color by number, that kind of a deal. It's obviously groups are not easy to do, or, it's not an easy process, but to help you along, to give you new ideas, to challenge maybe some preconceptions that you have about what it means to be a leader. A lot of people won't step up to lead a group because they're afraid of that word leader. What does that mean? How can I lead? I don't have my life together completely. I don't know the Bible enough. All of those things that keep people from stepping up and leading a group. I wanted to help kind of dispel some of that. So that's what the book is about. So you can grab it. Whether you're a seasoned group leader, if you need to look at, okay, how do I lead better, or how do I multiply my group, or you're brand new, you don't know what you're doing, you can grab that book and it can be helpful. That's my prayer with it.
Yeah, well, I see that as I'm reading it, and I think about it. I'm getting challenged, and I've done this for a while. I think all of our teachers will find nuggets in there. But then if you're one of those people who feels that stirring and you say, you know what, maybe I could do this, but I have no clue what I'm doing. But I'd love to lead a group. This is something where, you can pick it up and realize, okay, it's not scary. I could actually do this and be a part of it. And make sure I follow the right steps. But along the way, you mentioned gathering, launching, leading, and multiplying that small group. Is there one that you found presents maybe the biggest hurdle to groups?
Yeah, I mean, all four of those stages are difficult in and of themselves. It's scary to think about, how do I gather a group? How do I get people invited? Who do I invite? All of that. And then launching a group, you want it to be great. You want people to come back. You want the first meeting to be amazing, and people just love it. So that's a lot of pressure. And then obviously leading, how do I lead well? How do I have gospel-centered leadership? But I really think that the toughest stage for most group leaders is that multiplication stage, because it's easy to fall into the comfortability of, we know each other, we've been gathering, we don't want to break this up, we don't want anyone to leave our group. But the onus is on us to create generations of disciples. And I found that the best way to create generations of disciples is by creating new small groups. Most small groups, if they've been together for a while, it's hard for new people to find a place to fit in, because there's a history there. It's kind of like going to a new high school. If you ever had to do that, and you walk in and everybody already has this history and inside language and all of that, that's kind of what it is to step into a group that has existed. And so it's hard for people to find a place. A lot of times people will visit a group once or twice, and then they'll not go back because they don't find their place. Well, the best way to combat that and have a place for new people is by starting new groups. And the best way to start new groups is for somebody who has been discipled in a group will step up and offer to lead a new group or take over the existing group. And that's tough to do. And I think some of the mindset that we've had before is a negative view of multiplication, where we call it a split, where we say, okay, we're going to take half the group and we're going to split you into different groups. And I don't know that that's the best way to do it. I'm not going to do that to a group of friends in life. I'm not going to go up to a group of 10 friends and say, you guys have been hanging out too long. I'm going to have 5 of you go over here and be friends, and 5 of you go over here and be friends. It's just not natural. It's not the way we do life. But what I am going to encourage is that someone steps up, they learn what it looks like to be a leader, be a secondary leader, and then they either step out and start a new group for new people, or sometimes even more effective, the existing group leader who has raised up that secondary leader, they know what it's like to start a new group. So they leave that existing group with the secondary leader, they step out and they start a new group. And that creates another generation of disciples. And that doesn't mean that the leader completely leaves that other group. They can still hang out. They can still do things together. They can still kind of be a unit, but they're discipling these new people in this new group. Now, that's just a hard concept. And I don't know a church that, every group multiplies, it's just not going to happen. But if you can have that mindset from the beginning that I want to create generations of disciples, and the best way for me to do that is to raise up another leader that can either take over the group or lead a new group. Have that mindset from the beginning, and I think you'll be rewarded for it. But it's not easy. I'll be the first one to say that.
Yeah, it's not easy, and hear our heart, because at the end of the day, let's say you're in a group that has been together for 15 years. That's actually a positive thing, right? At the end of the day, you're studying the Bible together, you've got great relationships, and you're growing. And so we're always proud of that. And yet we also know that a key to multiplication is being able to take a group and use what's working, the magic of that group that you're in. And a few people go and say, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to franchise it out, we're going to start a new one. And so it's, you're not looked down on if you don't do that. But oh my goodness, to be able to take that and help a new group of people grow in faith in Christ and draw them in and help the church grow and accomplish that great commission to make disciples, that is incredible. And that's the thing that we're excited as we see people latch onto that idea. It really is great. And Chris, yeah. I want to think of our average group member, right? Because we've spent a lot of time talking about people stepping up as teachers to take the care leader role, the outreach leader role. But I want to think about just the average group member. I think that's the bulk of who's tuning in today. I'm in a group, I'm serving elsewhere in the church, I don't have time to take a leadership role. How can those people who are not in a leadership role in the group still help their group be healthy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yeah, I think it's important that everyone in a group discover what their gifts are. We are all gifted in different ways. Some of us are gifted to be teachers. Some of us are gifted with hospitality. Some of us are gifted with serving. All of these different giftings that each one of us have, and we have to discover those. And so I want to encourage you, if you're in a group, that discover what your gifts are. There are spiritual gifts tests that you can take. There are books that you can read. And I encourage groups to go through those together at least once a year, so you can discover what your gifts are, and then use those gifts within your group to help it succeed, to help it be more healthy, and be a participating member of a group. Now, there's nothing wrong with seasons of kind of soaking. We all have those seasons where we need to go and just be in a group and be loved on and be served for coming out of a painful time, or there's some things going on in our lives. But we need to move from that to where we are serving others in the group and we are active participants. So there are areas in your group, there are prayer needs. You may be someone who is organizationally gifted, and so you're able to organize that. There's hospitality needs in the group. There's how do we serve the people around us? How do we become more missional with our group, looking for opportunities, not just in the church, but outside of the church, in our community to serve? There's people that are just naturally gifted with welcoming people into the community, into the group, looking for people outside of the group that needs what's happening in there. So we can all be participating members as a part of our group that's going to help that group grow, be healthy, and disciple others. So I want to encourage you, if you are in that season where you're thinking, I can't, what can I do right now? I want you to get together with your group leader, get together with Kevin, and let's discover what your gifts are so that you can help the body, you can help the group grow. We all can participate. We all should participate.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'll just tell you, I've talked with our teachers, and most, if not all of them, are already operating at their margins, right? That everybody kind of hits their margin and they say, I can't do anymore. And so you probably are in a group with a teacher who would really want to do more, but doesn't really have the time to figure out the next thing to do. But if one of their group members said, hey, you know what, I'd be able to host a gathering every other month, I could do that. Or I could be the one to send out the weekly prayer request list. Or I hear you're talking more inviting to guests. I'd be willing to set those out every week. Just little things like that, those incremental things are a huge benefit to the group. So I agree. Talk with a teacher, talk with me. We can figure out ideas for helping make that happen. So that's great. I want to turn the tables just a little bit. The last question was about how the average group member can help make the group better. Let's talk about how the group can help connect. And I'm talking more about people who are not in a group currently. Every week in worship, we see people who were thrilled that are there, but we also long to help connect with them and draw them into the church. I think that doubles when we're doing online worship, because we know that there are people there. We just see numbers, right? There are X number of people who are signed on at that point, but we don't get to feel that connection with them. So how can a group connect with people who are on the fringes in the church?
Yeah, I think we have a unique opportunity right now with this pandemic, with groups meeting online, to invite people into our groups that would have never, done that before. They may not even attend our church normally on a Sunday morning, but they need community. So I think this is a great time to start thinking about those people who are not connected. I look at it in three circles. Think of your life in circles. We all have kind of these different concentric circles. The tighter circle that kind of level of intimacy that we have with the people that we know best, the people that we hang out with, the people that we work with, the people that we know that are neighbors, that we hang out on the weekend. Those are the people that we should look at first for inviting them to our groups. You know, our group meets in downtown Nashville. And so when we launched our group a couple of years ago, this group, we first looked at the people that live next door to us, because we have a lot of unconnected people that don't live near families. And so we invited a lot of our neighbors to be a part of our group, and they're in our group. So that's the first circle that we should think about, are the people that we just do life with that maybe aren't connected. And then there's that next circle, that kind of social belonging, where we know them, we kind of see them. Maybe we see them at church every once in a while, or we see them around the school with other parents, or we work with them, but we don't have a close relationship, but they're unconnected. So, but we have a tie to them. So how can we invite them? And right now it's as easy as sending a Zoom link. I mean, I don't know an easier way to invite somebody to church or invite somebody to a group than just sending them a Zoom link and say, hey, check this out. You know, we're talking about this topic, or we're looking at this book of the Bible. You might be interested in it. So it's an easy invite right now. So think about that circle. And then there's that circle beyond that, the people that we don't know, but we see them in the lobby and they seem to be unconnected, or we sit near them at church and they don't seem to know anyone. My wife is great at this. I'm more of an introvert by nature. And so I'm not just one naturally to go up to people and kind of hear their life stories. My wife is the opposite. We'll sit in a row at church, and somebody will sit 2 seats down from us. And by the end of the service, she knows their life story. She has invited them to our group. She has invited them over for lunch today. I mean, it's crazy, but she is able to get people that are on the fringes into community like nobody else I know. Here's just a good example. Our group was at a wedding. A couple in our group got married, and so some of our group went to the wedding. After the wedding, we were sitting at the reception, and it was one of those where everybody was placed at tables, so we didn't necessarily know everybody at your table, but a couple of our group couples were at the table, and there was one single lady that came to the wedding that didn't know anybody else at the wedding. She knew the bride from some work things, and she had on a neck brace, so we just started talking to her about kind of her life story, and she'd been through some really rough stuff, just a major wreck in the past week. She hadn't been in church in years. She was unconnected. She was pretty new to the town. She was overworked. She was depressed. And so just started talking to her a little bit, finding out more about her. And then one of the couples in our group said, hey, why don't you come and check out our small group next Tuesday night? And I'm thinking, there's no way. I mean, there's no way she's going to go over to somebody's home that she just met. She showed up. She came to our group the next Tuesday night. 2 weeks after that, she came to the church. 2 or 3 weeks after that, she invited her dad to church, who hadn't been to church in years. And then just about a month ago, she got baptized. Her life has flipped because she just happened to sit at a table with a group of people who cared enough for her that they invited her into community. So that's just one story of many, but you never know. There are people in those 3 circles that are needing community, that just need you right now to send a Zoom link. That's all they need. They are longing. People are longing for community. They are longing for personal touch right now with social distancing and isolation and all of that. So this is a great time to just make that invite, make that ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really goes back to believing God is at work, right? I mean, do I have the audacity to believe that God is still at work, where I'm willing to open my mouth or send a Zoom link to invite somebody to something? It's the answer is, yeah, God is absolutely at work, and we just need to trust him and step out and say, okay, God, let's see what you do with this. Me, a fragile, a flawed servant, willing to open my mouth and talk about you a little bit, just in an easy invite. We had a neat opportunity that happened in our church foyer. I happened along one day and I saw someone sitting there I didn't recognize, and I reached out to that person and discovered he was there sitting down to see who was going to come over to him. And so by happenstance, it was me. and I don't know if that's been 2 or 3 years, but now that couple is in leadership in the church, and so reaching out is really important. One idea as we close here, Chris, I was talking with Ken the other night. He was talking about a prospect file, and maybe that term isn't your favorite term, but a prospect file is just a list of people who you think might be a good fit for your small group. And the idea is, hey, do some activities with your group whenever you can, and whenever you have an activity, invite those people to it. And that way they get to know the group a little bit. It makes their first trip into an actual group meeting that much easier. And your fellow group members know that those guests should be people that they reach out to and invite to be part of the group. Or you could straight invite them to the group, but there are different ways that you can do that. And so just one idea for how to make this kind of thing work. So, Chris, I really want to thank you. This is a big benefit to us. So you have no idea how just talking with somebody else and sharing a little bit of ideas can really strengthen us.
Good. I really enjoyed the time with you, Kevin, and I want to encourage all of your group leaders and group members to continue on. I know this is a tough time and it's hard to connect online, but there will be another side of this. But continue meeting, continue clicking that link, because we need each other more than ever right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here's the deal. We're going to give away a book of Chris's. So if you are watching this at the first airing, you will see a link that you can click on, enter that, and there's going to be a winner who comes away with one of these. Not mine, it'll be a different one. I'm hanging on to this one. So,
awesome.
So check that out. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and appreciate your ministry.
Thank you, Kevin.